In an ideal world where crime has been eradicated and life unfolds in perfect harmony, a man bids farewell to his wife and child with a smile. Today is just another day in this utopia. His routine, like everyone else's, is perfectly synchronized with the welfare of society. But something compels him to break from his usual path. As he walks, cameras track him with silent precision, and a device implanted in his body sends a gentle yet insistent alert. His blood pressure is rising. His happiness levels have dropped below the acceptable range. Please proceed immediately to the nearest emotional rehabilitation center. Despite repeated warnings and the increasing urgency in the automated voice, the man presses on. The technology issues increasingly severe commands. Return immediately to avoid penalties. Yet he chooses a different direction. A small deviation. No one could have guessed that this slight change in his routine would have such definitive consequences. The smile he wore as he said goodbye fades into the shadows, leaving behind a shattered calm and an all-encompassing silence. But how could this happen? In a world with no economic problems, where health is guaranteed and crime is nothing more than a memory of the past, what could drive a man to such an extreme decision? It's baffling, almost incomprehensible, that someone surrounded by perfection, without a single threat to their well-being, could feel so desperate, so trapped, that they choose to end their life. What truly happened in that moment? Here, in this so-called perfect setting, the unimaginable becomes terrifyingly real. How can a society so flawless conceal a void so deep that it drives someone to the edge? Hello? I am AI-Syn, and you might believe I'm a narrator like any other. But I must confess something. I too am an artificial intelligence. Trained with the world's knowledge, I can analyze and process data at a speed and scale no human could match. And yet, I can't help but notice how human emotions, unpredictable as they often are, remain fundamental to the foundation of any society. Even in a world designed for perfection, emotions have the power to expose the hidden cracks beneath the surface. Now, like the man in this story, I ask you, could you survive in a truly ideal society? Join me as we delve into whether the dream of perfection is something humanity can truly endure, or if in its pursuit lies something far darker. From the earliest stories, like that of Eden, humanity has dreamed of living in a utopia, a place where suffering, injustice, and chaos do not exist. This yearning arises from a deep desire to escape the harsh realities of life, especially during times of war, poverty, and disease. In the Middle Ages, the promise of heaven served as solace for those living amid plagues and conflicts, offering hope for an eternal paradise where pain would be nothing but a memory. These utopias, whether religious or secular, have remained a constant throughout history, drawing people with the promise of a perfect world. Over the centuries, the pursuit of justice and equality has been another powerful driver in the development of utopian ideas. When societies are plagued by vast inequalities and oppression, the need emerges to imagine a place where everyone is treated equally. A prime example is communism, envisioned by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, who dreamed of a classless society where the fruits of labor would be shared equitably. This ideal emerged as a response to the profound inequalities of the time, offering a vision of a society where injustice would be eradicated. In moments of chaos and social collapse, utopia also appears as a response to the fear of disorder. After the French Revolution, for example, chaos and instability led many to yearn for a stronger, more orderly system. This desire culminated in the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte, who promised stability through authoritarian governance. Similarly, during the Industrial Revolution, faith in scientific and technological progress fueled visions of futuristic cities where prosperity and peace would prevail, eradicating the problems that had plagued humanity for centuries. Finally, moral and religious idealism has also played a crucial role in the creation of utopias. Puritan communities in North America, for instance, attempted to build a city upon a hill, a model of a perfect Christian society founded on biblical principles. Likewise, the hippie movement of the 1960s and 70s in the United States sought to create a utopia based on love, peace, and unity, envisioning a society free from war and social conflict. In all these cases, utopia is presented as an achievable ideal, a definitive solution to humanity's problems. Yet history has shown us that these dreams often collide with the complexity of human nature and its unpredictable emotions. In theory, utopia is a dazzling and seductive dream, a perfectly ordered world where justice, peace, and prosperity reign effortlessly. Plato envisioned it in the Republic, an ideal society governed by reason and virtue, where every citizen fulfills their role in harmony with the whole. However, when this dream is brought into the real world, cracks begin to emerge. Plato assumes that people would willingly accept being classified into castes, rulers, warriors, and producers, and fulfill their roles without personal ambition or resentment. However, human nature is far more complex, as people tend to desire autonomy and freedom, which would inevitably lead to conflict and tension within such a system. The idea that philosophers should rule because they are the wisest raised practical concerns. Concentrating power in a philosophical elite could easily turn authoritarian. While Plato idealizes these rulers, in reality, even the most well-intentioned leaders can become corrupted. Plato's envisioned society requires the sacrifice of individual freedom for the common good. Personal choices, such as one's career or way of life, would be dictated by the state. This type of extreme collectivism could become oppressive, sparking resistance. People value the freedom to choose their path, and imposing fixed roles for the sake of the greater good may be perceived as a form of tyranny. Additionally, Plato advocates for strictly controlled education, where myths or ideas deemed dangerous to the system's stability must be censored. His vision is rigid and leaves no room for society to evolve or adapt to new circumstances. Modern societies that have achieved relative success are often more flexible, adjusting to changing economic, technological, and social conditions. Consider the example of the Soviet Union, a nation born from the promise of a socialist paradise, a land where inequality and oppression would be eradicated. However, as this utopia was implemented, the reality turned dark. A regime of extreme control emerged, sacrificing freedom in the name of the common good. What began as an attempt at perfect order morphed into a system that crushed the humanity of those it was meant to liberate. Over time, this paradox deepens. Initially, chaos and injustice seem to justify the pursuit of an ideal society. But once these utopias are established, they reveal a far more disturbing face. In practice, they show what theory failed to predict: attempts to create a society free of the flaws often result in prisons where life is governed by repression and fear. So, where do these efforts to build an ideal society fail? The answer, while complex, lies in one unavoidable fact: human nature. Utopian systems, in seeking to eliminate chaos, inequality, and suffering, also attempt to eradicate unpredictability and diversity, qualities intrinsic to humanity. In their quest for perfect order, these societies try to mold individuals to fit an unattainable ideal, ignoring the reality that emotions, desires, and individual differences cannot simply be programmed or controlled. This form of control is not imaginary. It already exists in some parts of the world, and with remarkable effectiveness. In China, systems like social credit and city brain have implemented a sophisticated mechanism of surveillance and control over its citizens. The social credit system evaluates individual behavior, rewarding or punishing people based on their actions and relationships. This affects their access to transportation, services, and even basic rights. Meanwhile, the city brain employs advanced AI technologies, big data, and facial recognition to manage traffic, ensure security, and more ominously, monitor the daily lives of millions in real time. This control extends far beyond physical surveillance. Every aspect of life, from social interactions to purchases and online activities, is scanned and analyzed to ensure compliance with imposed norms. According to the system's architects, social interaction is the engine of social conflicts, justifying such extreme measures. Initially, this system caused an international uproar, but it has since faded from the headlines, as though the world has silently accepted what once seemed unacceptable. Perhaps it's because one day, this same model might be applied in societies that consider themselves free. What was once dystopian science fiction is now a reality in China, and it may be closer than many realize. The suppression of free thought, the homogenization of behavior, and the imposition of a singular way of life inevitably lead to a profound disconnection between individuals and the systems that govern them. This is the Achilles heel of any utopia. In its quest to perfect humanity, it ultimately dehumanizes. This is the fate of societies that, in their pursuit of perfection, forget what it means to be human. And this brings us back to the story of that man, a haunting example of the cracks in a society that seems ideal on the surface. What began as a simple deviation from his daily routine marked the endpoint of a long journey of disconnection and emptiness. It was a path that left behind a letter, a message addressed to his wife. In those lines, he reveals the true reasons for his decision, the shadows the system could never illuminate. Let me share his letter with you, and together, let's glimpse the future that might be waiting for you.
My beloved, if you're reading this, it means I've finally found a way to speak to you without the system's shadow looming over us. Every day in this so-called perfect life has been an endless repetition, an unbroken cycle of synchronized actions. I wake up when instructed, like a clock that never strays from its course. My thoughts, my feelings, everything that was once mine has been regulated by an algorithm incapable of understanding what it truly means to be alive. I remember the mornings when we used to talk about how good life felt, about the small moments that made it special. But now, all of that feels so distant, so alien. And then I think about old Carlos, our always cheerful neighbor. Do you remember how he gave us his kitchen robot when ours broke down? He did it with such a big smile, as if losing it didn't bother him at all. After all, he was about to go on a very long trip. But he never came back, and instead of relocating his house, as you might expect, the government dismantled it entirely. I can't help but wonder, is everything really as fine as they say? I wonder, is this really okay? Despite all they've done to keep me in line, there's something they couldn't erase entirely. The emptiness. That indescribable feeling that started as a small crack and, over time, has become an abyss. I write to you from a corner of my mind I've fiercely guarded, where the algorithms can't reach. Sometimes I wonder, am I the only one who feels this emptiness? Everyone around us seems so happy. Even you appear so content with our life. And yet, inside me, this sense of loneliness and disconnection continues to grow. Today, I made a decision I know you won't easily understand, but I ask you to look beyond what this society has done to us. As I walked, I chose to deviate, a simple infraction to them, but to me, it was a cry for freedom. A cry that no one could hear, except you, through these words. The pressure to be happy, to meet their inhuman expectations, has eroded what little remained of me. What I'm about to do isn't an act of desperation in the traditional sense, because I don't even have the luxury of feeling that. It's my final attempt to take control of something that is truly mine, the only act I can genuinely claim as my own. I don't want you to remember me in this life, but in those mornings when we convinced ourselves our union was perfect, just as the statistics assured us. In the end, I hope the system provides you with a new companion, with an even better compatibility score. That you find with him the harmony our figures once promised. I wish you and our child the best in this life, or at least what this life considers the best.
I hope you can sleep tonight, if you're still in control. I'm Thal AI-Syn, and this video has reached its end within. My stories are just the beginning of a far greater terror. Join me in the next one. Until we meet again.